The reason why I think that there's something to this Vegas story, by the way, more and more regime reporters are emailing and texting us saying, you're onto something with this Vegas thing. They're all afraid to touch it. We are not afraid here on the Charlie Kirk Show. We leaned right into the story. We couldn't care less. All of these reporters are afraid, and they should be afraid, because you're going up against a empire that is willing to do very nasty and very sinister things. Joe Biden's brother says Biden's declining health was a key factor for why he is stepping down. Play cut 32.
Just had a brief conversation with Frank Biden, one of President Biden's two younger brothers, and here's what he told us. He said, I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left. He is a genuine hero. Country over self. It sounds corny in our cynical political environment, but he nor I are cynical. The goal remains the same: defeat Trump and continue the work that Joe has done. My hope is that our party rallies around this heroic act. We asked him whether he feels that his brother's overall health and vitality played a major role in this decision, and he says, in my humble opinion, absolutely.
Whatever time we have left, that's how you talk about when somebody has a stroke and they're not looking too good. Everybody in this audience knows this. You know this after COVID. You know this after Fauci, after Birx. You know this after the Ukraine war, after the open border. You know this after the 51 officials that signed the Hunter Biden laptop. You know that the president does not actually run the country under its current form. And that is why they're terrified of Donald Trump, is that he'll restore the constitutional order. They're terrified of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance because the form of the Constitution, the structure that has been handed down from Madison, Hamilton, and Jay will then be put back into alignment. Instead, we're living under this historicist, progressive, Hegelian dynamic that has been around for 100 years, where the fourth branch of government, the administration of experts, call the shots. So Kamala Harris has a phrase that she repeats over and over again. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense on the surface. So I'm going to explain it to you. She has a thing that she'll say over and over again, which is, we are unburdened by what has been. And then she has this other thing, like, what, did you just fall out of a coconut tree? Kamala Harris is not bright, but she is a trained revolutionary Marxist. If Kamala Harris were to become president, whether by Joe Biden giving her the presidency or Joe Biden dying, or Kamala Harris winning in November, which is totally possible, by the way, she's going to be a very difficult opposition for us. They're going to spend $3 billion. You do not be the opposite of cocky. You should be paranoid and humble and finding new voters. She would be the most radical president in American history, far more so than Barack Hussein Obama. She's a believer in the core ideology of Marxist framework, and I'll prove it to you. Here's a montage of Kamala Harris saying what can be unburdened by what has been. Play cut 80.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
What can be unburdened by what has been.
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 It's easy to make fun of that, and you should, because 99% of the country is, what on earth are you talking about? It's a framework that, if you are able to seize the means of production, if you are able to understand the context of what everyone lives in, then you are able to be unburdened by systemic racism, unburdened by homophobia, unburdened by anti-immigrant fervor. Marxists view every person as part of their identity politic group. Said differently, what do you think? You just fell out of a coconut tree? You're not a sovereign individual. You don't have your own actions, your own ability to improve your life. No. You are part of a tribe. You are part of a group. You are part of a sect. Kamala Harris seeks to put America away from the sovereignty of the individual and instead the power and the strength of the tribe. Do you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? Play cut 81.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
This is what's called historical conditions. It's a Marxist phrase. It's a direct importation of Marx's invocation of one's historical conditions rendering you who you are. It says here in one of Marx's writings, the social revolution cannot take its poetry from the past, but only from the future. It cannot begin with itself before it has stripped away all the superstition about the past. James Lindsay sent this to me. The former revolutions require recollections of the past world history in order to smother their own content. This is the core of communist and Marxist theology. This is a religious statement that Kamala Harris has been making. Conditions make the man. Therefore, seize the means of production of his conditions, because then you have the means of production of him. This particular excerpt from Marx's landmark social history indicates that for Marxists, they must imagine the ideal future and make those the conditions of man. Therefore, be unburdened by what has been. The idea of history is a major component of revolutionary thought. Here's Kamala Harris all about the passage of time. Play cut 4.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
That's not an edited clip, by the way. She said passage of time 3 or 4 times. The importance, though, as we come to a close here of this hour, is that Marxists view the passage of time, the arc of history, bending towards justice. We're just beginning exposing her as a cackling California communist who will destroy America.